The massive chamber stretched out like a metal cave filled with strange beings. Lights of different colors blinked and flashed as aliens from 12 different worlds sat in their special seats. The air smelled like metal and ozone. Strange sounds filled the space as the aliens talked to each other in ways humans could barely understand. Dong-Min stood alone at the center of it all. His black suit looked plain compared to the colorful aliens around him. His face showed nothing, but his hands were tight fists at his sides. He had been Earth's main speaker for 20 years. Today might be his last day in this job. The Supreme Arbiter looked like a walking piece of glass. Her voice sounded like wind chimes when she spoke. "We have made our choice," she said. "The human species is no longer welcome in the Galactic Council." Heiwan sat in the viewing area with the other humans. She was a scientist who studied alien life forms. She had spent her whole life trying to understand these beings. Now she watched as they turned their backs on humanity. Her heart felt heavy. In her chest, next to her, Kinam gripped his chair so hard his knuckles were white. He had been a trade specialist, working to make deals between humans and aliens for 15 years. Bo-Ra, the military advisor, stared straight ahead without blinking. Chan-Wu, the youngest of their group, looked like he might be sick. "The charges are clear," the Arbiter continued. "Humans are too violent. They use up too many resources. They change other cultures in bad ways. These crimes cannot be forgiven." An alien that looked like a giant bug clicked its mandibles in agreement. Another one that was covered in fur made a deep humming sound. They all seemed happy about this. Decision. Dong-Min finally spoke. His voice was calm and steady. "May I ask how long we have?" 72 standard hours, the Arbiter said. "All humans must leave Council space. All human colonies must be given up. You will return to your home system and stay there. This decision cannot be changed." The other humans in the viewing area looked shocked. Some of them had been born on the colony worlds. Those places were their homes. Now they were being forced to leave everything behind. A red-scaled alien named Vorthak stood up. "Humans have always been a problem," he said. "They fight too much. They ask too many questions. They never follow the old ways. The galaxy will be better without them." Other aliens made sounds of agreement. The crystal beings made musical tones. The gas-filled aliens changed colors. The machine-like species blinked their lights in patterns. Hi-1 remembered her first day working with aliens. She had been so excited to learn about their different ways of life. She had thought they could all work together to make the galaxy a better place. Now she realized that many of them had never really accepted humans at all. Dong-Min gathered his few belongings. He had a small bag with some personal items and important papers. Everything else would have to be left behind. "Is there anything else?" he asked. "Leave now," the Arbiter said. "Do not try to contact us again. Do not ask for help. You are no longer part of our community." As Dong-Min walked toward the exit, he passed by the alien representatives. None of them looked at him. Some of them were already talking about how to divide up the things humans would leave behind. They seemed excited about getting new colonies and resources. But Dong-Min was not as upset as they might have expected. He pressed a small button on his communicator. It was a signal that humans throughout the galaxy had been waiting for. The human delegation walked out of the chamber together. In the hallway, Chan-Wu finally spoke. "What do we do now?" he asked. Dong-Min looked at his team. These people had worked so hard to build relationships with the aliens. They had spent years learning alien languages and customs. They had tried to prove that humans belonged in the galactic community. "Now we do what humans do best," Dong-Min said. "We survive." Heiwan understood what he meant. She had studied human history as well as alien biology. Throughout their past, humans had faced many challenges. They had survived ice ages, wars, diseases, and disasters. Each time, they had found a way to keep going. "The ships are ready?" Bo-Ra asked. Dong-Min nodded. "They have been ready for months. We knew this day might come." Kinam looked confused. "You knew? How did you know?" "Because we have been watching and listening," Dong-Min explained. We saw how they looked at us. We heard what they said when they thought we could not understand. We knew they were planning this. The group walked through the space station toward the docking area where their ship waited. Along the way, they passed aliens from many different worlds. Some of them stared at the humans with curiosity. Others seemed happy to see them leaving. At the docking bay, their pilot Jamin was waiting. He had been checking the ship and getting it ready for the long journey home. "Everything is ready," he reported. "We can leave whenever you want." Dongmin looked back at the station one last time. It was huge and beautiful, with technology from dozens of different worlds. Humans had helped build parts of it. They had worked alongside aliens to create something amazing. Now they were being forced to leave it all behind. "Sir?" Jamin asked. "Should we go?" Dongmin pressed another button on his communicator. This signal would go out to every human settlement in the galaxy. It was a simple message, but it would change everything. "Yes," he said. "It is time to go home." As their ship pulled away from the station, Hayawan watched through the window. The space around them was filled with the lights of many different ships and stations. All of it was controlled by the alien species that had just rejected humanity. But she was not afraid. She had seen what humans could do when they worked together. They had built amazing things on Earth and on their colony worlds. They had solved problems that the aliens thought were impossible. "What happens next?" Chanwu asked. Dong-Min smiled for the first time that day. "Next, we show them what they just gave up." The ship turned away from the station and headed toward human space. Behind them, the aliens were already celebrating their victory. They thought they had solved their human problem. They had no idea what was really about to begin. Taehyun stood on the bridge of his massive ship and watched the stars. He was the commander of the human evacuation fleet, but his ships had been in position for months. They were disguised as normal supply ships and cargo haulers. No one had suspected what they were really there for. His communication device beeped with an incoming message. It was from Earth Central Command. The message was short and simple. "Execute protocol, silence." Taehyun had been waiting for these words for a long time. He turned to his crew and gave them the order they had been trained for. "Send the signal to all human settlements. It is time to go." Across the galaxy, humans received the same message, at exactly the same time. On every colony world, in every space station, at every mining operation, humans stopped what they were doing and began to move. Jin was the chief engineer on New Kyoto, a beautiful world with purple skies and silver trees. She had spent 10 years building the fusion reactors that powered the entire colony. The reactors were her life's work. Now she was going to tear them down. "Are you sure about this?" asked her assistant Kyung-ho. "It took us so long to build all of this." Yujin looked at the control panels that showed the reactor status. Everything was running perfectly. The reactors could power the colony for another 100 years. "Yes, I am sure," she said. "Take apart everything. Leave nothing behind." The human colonists worked quickly and quietly. They had practiced this many times without telling the aliens who shared their world. Every piece of human technology was carefully removed. Every building was taken apart. Every machine was loaded onto the transport ships. The aliens on New Kyoto watched in confusion. The Nexari who lived in the crystal caves could not understand why the humans were leaving so completely. "Why do you take everything?" asked their leader, speaking in broken human language. Jin did not explain. She just smiled and continued working. The aliens would understand soon enough. On Kepler 442b, Sumin was in charge of terraforming. This world had been a frozen ice ball when humans first arrived. Now it had breathable air, flowing water, and growing plants. Sumin had designed the atmospheric processors that changed the entire planet. "Shut down all the weather control systems," she told her team. "Set them to reverse mode." Her team looked shocked. Hyun-soo, one of the younger engineers, could not believe what he was hearing. "But Sumin, if we do that, the planet will go back to being frozen. All our work will be destroyed." Sumin nodded sadly. "That is the point. If we cannot have it, no one can have it." The atmospheric processors began to shut down one by one. The machines that had warmed the planet for 60 years went silent. The weather control systems that had brought rain and sunshine were set to bring back the ice and cold. In the mining world of Proxima Centauri C, Jay Wook and his crews were doing something even more extreme. They were not just leaving their mining operations. They were making sure no one could ever use them again. Seal every tunnel, Jay Wook ordered. Collapse every mine shaft. Use the explosives to make sure nothing can be recovered. His mining. Crews worked through the day and night. They had spent decades digging deep into the planet to find rare metals and crystals. The aliens had always been amazed at how humans could work in such dangerous conditions. Other species were afraid of the deep mines and the poisonous gases. Now the humans were burying it all. Every tunnel was filled with rocks and metal. Every access point was destroyed. The rare earth elements that the aliens wanted so badly would stay buried forever. Min-Jun was a cargo pilot who had been flying between star systems for 15 years. He knew every dangerous route in the galaxy. Other alien pilots were too scared to fly through asteroid fields or near unstable stars. But humans did it all the time. Load up everything, he told his crew. We are taking all the navigation data with us. The star charts and route information that humans had spent decades creating were being deleted from alien computers. The safe passages through dangerous areas that only humans knew about were being erased. Soon the aliens would have to find their own ways through the hazardous parts of space. But the biggest surprise came when the alien inspection teams arrived at human colonies expecting to find abandoned buildings and equipment. Instead, they found empty worlds with no trace that humans had ever been there. On Tau Cetier, the Altarian inspector Klexthan landed his ship where the human city used to be. There was nothing but empty ground and native plants. It was as if the city had never existed. Where is everything? He asked his assistant. His assistant checked the scanners again. There is nothing here, sir. No buildings, no roads, no power systems. Even the landing pad is gone. The same thing happened on world after world. The aliens found empty spaces where human settlements used to be. Even the orbital stations had vanished completely. Some had been taken apart and moved. Others had been destroyed so thoroughly that there was no debris left behind. On Earth, the evacuation was the most impressive of all. Billions of humans were being moved to massive colony ships, but they were not leaving Earth empty. They were taking everything they could with them. Yoon-He was in charge of the technology evacuation. Her teams were removing every computer, every database, every piece of advanced equipment from the planet. If we built it, we take it, she said. Leave nothing useful behind. Even the things that seemed permanently attached to the planets were being removed. Geothermal power plants were dismantled. Underwater cities were emptied and their structures were dissolved. Space elevators were cut down and their materials were recycled. The alien species that had forced humans to leave began to realize that something was very wrong. They had expected to inherit human colonies and technology. Instead, they were finding empty worlds and useless debris. Vorthak the Efficient, who had spoken against humans in the council, sent inspection teams to dozens of human worlds. Every report was the same. The humans had taken everything with them. How is this possible? He asked his advisors. How can they remove entire cities so quickly? His chief advisor, a mechanical being named Unit 7742, analyzed the data. It appears that humans have been preparing for this evacuation for a very long time. They had the ships and equipment ready before the council made their decision. On the colony ship New Horizon, Mikyung was monitoring alien communications. She could hear the confusion and growing panic in their voices. The aliens were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They are trying to contact us, she reported to the ship's commander. Ignore all communications, the commander ordered. We maintain complete silence. The human evacuation continued for weeks. Ship after ship filled with people and equipment left alien space and headed toward human territory. The galaxy that had rejected humanity was being systematically stripped of everything humans had built. Hokama, who had been the head of the Human Engineering Corps, watched from his command ship as the final evacuation ships departed. He had supervised the construction of countless projects throughout the galaxy. Now he had supervised their complete removal. "Status report," he asked his assistant. "All human personnel have been evacuated from Council space," came the reply. "All human technology has been removed or destroyed. All human knowledge has been deleted from alien databases." One-Ho smiled. The aliens had thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they had lost the people who had been holding their civilization together. Soon they would understand the true cost of their decision. The human fleet turned away from the alien territories and headed for home. Behind them, they left empty worlds and confused aliens. The galaxy's most productive builders had become its most thorough destroyers. The exodus was complete. Now the real test would begin. 3 months had passed since the humans left, and Nalthari was staring at numbers that made no sense. The Altarian trade minister had been confident that galactic commerce would improve without human interference. Instead, everything was falling apart. "Shipping efficiency is down 40%, his assistant reported. "The dangerous routes are not being used at all." Nalthari looked at the star charts on his screen. The red zones marked areas that were too dangerous for most alien pilots: asteroid fields, unstable star systems, and regions with high radiation. For decades, human pilots had been the only ones willing to fly through these areas. "What about hiring other species?" he asked. "We tried, sir. The Zephyrians say the radiation makes them sick. The Nexari claim their ships cannot handle the gravitational stress. The Draxians refuse to risk their valuable vessels." Nalthari realized that humans had been doing the jobs that no one else wanted to do. They had flown the dangerous routes, worked in the hazardous conditions, and taken the risks that other species avoided. Now those jobs were not getting done at all. On the industrial world of Kepler 22b, Vorthak the Efficient was learning the same painful lesson. The mining operations that had been running smoothly for decades were now completely stopped. "What is the problem?" he demanded from his mining supervisors. "The equipment is too advanced for us," replied Supervisor Grixtal. "The humans designed machines that could work in extreme heat and toxic gases. Our species cannot operate in those conditions." Vorthak looked at the massive mining machines that sat silent and unused. They were built to human specifications, designed for human operators who could work in environments that would kill most other species. The deepest and most valuable mines were now inaccessible. "Can we modify the equipment?" he asked. "We tried, sir, but we do not understand how it works. The humans built these machines using principles that our engineers do not know." Far away in space, Mikyung sat in the communications center of the massive human colony ship New Horizon. Her job was to monitor alien broadcasts and gather information about what was happening in the galaxy they had left behind. "The distress calls are increasing every day," she reported to the ship's command staff. "They are having problems everywhere." Commander Park looked at the data Mikyung had collected. "What kind of problems?" "Equipment failures, transportation breakdowns, mining accidents, agricultural disasters. It seems like everything humans were involved in is now failing." One-Ho, the former head of Human Engineering Corps, was also on the New Horizon. He had been expecting this to happen. "We were not just workers," he explained to the others. "We were the specialists who handled the dangerous jobs that other species could not do." The problems were getting worse every day. On the agricultural world of Kepler 186f, the weather management systems were failing. The automated systems that controlled rain and temperature had been designed by humans who understood how to work with unpredictable weather patterns. The Zephyrian farmers who lived there sent desperate messages to their government. "The crops are dying," they reported. "The weather control systems are not working properly. We need help." But there was no help available. The humans who had designed and maintained these systems were gone. The technical manuals they had left behind were written in ways that other species could not understand. Similar disasters were happening throughout the galaxy. Space stations that humans had built were experiencing critical system failures. The Maidao, life support systems, power generators, and artificial gravity systems all required maintenance that only humans knew how to do. The Draxian hegemony lost 3 asteroid mining stations when their automated systems failed completely. The stations had been built in the dangerous asteroid belts where only human workers had been willing to operate. Other species found the zero gravity and constant impacts too dangerous. How did this happen? Demanded Draxian Commander Zethrock. These systems were supposed to be automatic. They were automatic, sir, his technical advisor explained. But they still needed regular maintenance and updates. The human technicians used to do that work remotely. Can our people learn to do it? The working conditions make most of our people violently ill, sir. The zero gravity and constant motion cause severe disorientation. Humans seem to be the only species that could adapt to those conditions. But the most serious problem was happening with the jump gate network that connected all the star systems in the galaxy. The gates themselves were ancient alien technology, thousands of years old, but the navigation systems, safety protocols, and maintenance procedures had all been developed by humans over the past 2 centuries. Dal-Su was monitoring the situation from the human intelligence ship. He had been a diplomat before the Exodus, and now he was watching as the galactic civilization began to collapse. Jump gate failures are increasing exponentially, he reported. They have lost 3 major hub connections in the past week. The jump gates were the backbone of galactic civilization. Without them, travel between star systems would take decades instead of days. The ancient aliens who had built the gates had left no instruction manuals. For centuries, different species had tried to understand how they worked. Only humans had succeeded in creating reliable maintenance and navigation systems for the gates. They had developed the safety protocols that prevented ships from being torn apart in hyperspace. They had written the software that calculated safe jump routes and prevented collisions. Now that software was failing, and no one else knew how to fix it. Yoon-Je was the human fleet's chief scientist. She had been analyzing reports from the alien territories, and her conclusions were alarming. They are losing technological capability at a rate of 12% per month, she told the fleet leadership. What does that mean? Asked Fleet Commander Hyun-Woo. It means that their civilization will completely collapse within 2 years, Yoon-Je explained. They depended on humans for too many critical functions. Without us, they cannot maintain what they have built. The most shocking discovery came from In-Soo, who had been a diplomat and intelligence officer. Before the Exodus, he had managed to access many alien communication networks. Now he was monitoring their internal discussions. They are starting to realize something that terrifies them, he reported. Humans were not just workers and builders. We were the primary source of technological innovation in the galaxy. In-Soo showed the leadership his analysis. For the past 200 years, almost every major technological breakthrough could be traced back to human research. Humans had developed new energy systems, improved space travel, created better life support systems, and invented countless other technologies. Other species had been content to use human innovations without understanding how they worked. They had assumed that humans were just good at building things. They had not realized that humans were also the ones pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Without human innovation, the galaxy's technological progress has completely stopped. In-Soo continued. They are not just losing maintenance and operation capabilities, they are losing their ability to advance and improve. Meanwhile, the desperate communications from alien governments were increasing every day. Commander Hyun-Woo received dozens of messages offering everything from trade deals to territorial concessions. The aliens were beginning to panic. They are offering us full reinstatement with expanded privileges, reported Communications Officer So Young. The Altarians are offering us 3 complete star systems. The Nexari want to give us seats on the ruling council. And our response? Asked Hyun-Woo. Complete silence, replied So Young. We record and analyze every message, but we do not reply to any of them. The silence was perhaps the most frightening thing of all for the alien species. They were used to humans being eager to communicate and negotiate. The complete lack of response suggested that humans might have moved beyond caring about alien civilization entirely. Back on New Kyoto, The purple sky was turning gray as the atmospheric systems continued to fail without human maintenance. The silver trees were beginning to wither as the environmental controls broke down. The Nexari who lived in the crystal caves were sending increasingly desperate messages to their government. "The world is dying," they reported. "We need the humans to come back and fix what they built." But the humans were not coming back. They were moving further and further away from alien space, heading toward unknown regions of the galaxy. The species that had rejected them were learning too late how much they had depended on human knowledge, human courage, and human innovation. The reckoning had begun, and it was far worse than anyone had imagined. 6 months after the humans had left, Supreme Arbiter Vexthala called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The crystal being's usual bright glow was dim with worry. The chamber that had once been filled with confident voices now hummed with fear and desperation. The massive room looked different now. Several seats were empty because some species could no longer afford to send representatives. The lighting system was flickering because the human technicians who maintained it were gone. Even the air recycling system was making strange noises. "We are facing a crisis unlike anything in our history," Vexthala announced to the assembled aliens. "Our civilization is collapsing." Dalsu was watching the proceedings from the human intelligence ship far away in space. His monitoring equipment allowed him to see and hear everything that happened in the council chamber. What he saw surprised even him. The proud alien leaders who had once voted to expel humanity were now blaming each other for the disaster. The Zephyrian delegate was pointing his 4 arms at the Altarian representative. "This is your fault," he was saying. "You made us too dependent on human labor." The Altarian shot back with an angry response. "We warned you that humans were changing our society too much. You said we should use them more, not less." The crystalline Nexari were making harsh musical sounds that translated as accusations against the mechanical Draxians. "Your people pushed the hardest to remove the humans. Now look what has happened." But Vexthala knew that the blame did not matter now. The damage was done, and it was getting worse every day. She had reports from across the galaxy that painted a terrifying picture of decline and collapse. "The jump gate network has lost 60% efficiency," she announced. 17 gates have failed completely. If we cannot fix them soon, entire sectors will be cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The alien representatives looked shocked. The jump gates were the foundation of their civilization. Without them, their vast galactic community would break apart into isolated star systems. Yun-G, the human fleet's chief scientist, was analyzing the situation from her laboratory ship. She had been studying the reports of galactic decline, and her computers had calculated the rate of collapse with frightening precision. "They are past the point of no return," she told the human leadership. "Even if we went back right now, it would take decades to rebuild what they have lost." Fleet Commander Hyunwoo looked at her data with amazement. How is that possible? They had thousands of years to build their civilization. "But they built it on human foundations," Yunji explained. "For the past 2 centuries, humans have been the ones maintaining, improving, and expanding their technology. Without us, they are like a house built on sand." The reports coming from alien space were getting more desperate every day. On the industrial world of Kepler 22b, Vorthak the Efficient was dealing with a complete breakdown of mining operations. The advanced equipment that humans had designed was failing, and no other species could operate it. "We have tried to hire Altarian engineers," he reported to his government. "They say the working conditions are impossible. The heat and toxic gases make them sick within minutes." "What about the Zephyrians?" asked his supervisor. "They refuse to work underground at all. They say it goes against their nature as sky dwellers." "The mechanical Draxians? Their circuits cannot function in the high-temperature, high-pressure environment. They were not designed for such conditions." Vorthak was beginning to understand something that terrified him. Humans had not just been willing to work in dangerous conditions. They had been the only species capable of working in those conditions. Their biology, their technology, and their psychology had all been perfectly suited for jobs that other species found impossible. .in-SU, the human intelligence officer, was monitoring communications across the galaxy. What he discovered was even more shocking than the technological failures. He presented his findings to the human leadership with a sense of amazement. They are realizing that humans were the source of almost all innovation in the galaxy, he reported. Look at this analysis. In-Su showed them a detailed study that alien scientists had finally completed. For the past 200 years, 93% of all new technologies had been developed by humans or based on human research. Faster engines, better life support systems, improved communication devices, advanced medical equipment. Almost everything had come from human minds. Other species had been content to use our inventions without understanding how they worked, In-Su continued. They thought innovation just happened naturally. They did not realize that it required a specific type of thinking that humans excelled. What kind of thinking? Asked Commander Hyunwoo. The willingness to experiment with dangerous ideas, the ability to see connections between different fields of study, the courage to try things that might fail. Most alien species are too risk-averse for true innovation. This revelation was spreading panic through alien governments. They were realizing that without humans, their technological progress had not just slowed down, it had completely stopped. Worse, they were losing the ability to maintain the technology they already had. The Nexari, crystalline cities, were going dark as their power systems failed. The Altarian trade networks were breaking down as their ships could not navigate the dangerous routes. The Zephyrian agricultural worlds were experiencing crop failures as their weather control systems malfunctioned. Supreme Arbiter Vexithala was receiving desperate reports from every member species. The Draxian hegemony had lost contact with 23 star systems when their jump gates failed. The Zephyrian Federation was facing starvation as their food distribution network collapsed. We need to contact the humans, suggested Council Member Thexara, an insectoid being from the Outer Rim. We must ask them to return. They are not responding to any communications, Vexthala replied. We have sent hundreds of messages. They maintain complete silence. Communication Officer So Young was monitoring all the alien attempts to contact humanity. She reported to the human leadership that the messages were becoming increasingly desperate. They are offering us everything, she said. Full reinstatement with honors, expanded territory, representation on the ruling council. Some are even offering to make humans the dominant species in the alliance. What is our response? Asked Dongmin, who had been the last human ambassador to the council. Complete silence, replied Commander Hyunwoo. We record every message, but we send no replies. The silence was having a psychological effect on the aliens that the humans had not expected. Species that were used to human eagerness to communicate and negotiate were becoming terrified by the lack of response. Some alien psychologists were suggesting that humans had moved beyond anger into complete indifference. They do not hate us, reported a Zephyrian analyst. Hatred would be better. They simply do not care about us anymore. This indifference was perhaps the most frightening thing of all. It suggested that humans had found something better than galactic civilization. The aliens began to wonder what the humans were doing in the unexplored regions of space where they had fled. Meanwhile, the human fleet was indeed exploring new territories. Scout ships led by Captain Hei-Wan had discovered star systems rich with resources that the Council species had never found. These systems were in regions that aliens considered too dangerous to explore. The Outer Rim contains materials we have never seen before, Hei-Wan reported. Energy crystals that are 10 times more efficient than anything we used in Council space. Metals that are lighter and stronger than our best alloys. Planets that are perfect for terraforming. Why did the aliens never find these? Asked Fleet Commander Hyunwoo. Because they were afraid to look. These systems are near unstable stars and black holes. The radiation levels and gravitational effects make exploration extremely dangerous. But with human technology and human courage, they are accessible. Back in Council space, the situation was getting worse every day. The jump gate failures had created a cascade effect that was splitting the galaxy into isolated regions. Trade between star systems had almost stopped. Communication between different species was becoming impossible. Vex Quothala made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. She authorized the unprecedented action of broadcasting a formal apology to humanity across all frequencies. People of Earth. Her message began. We were wrong. We failed to understand that you were not a contamination of our civilization. You were the foundation that made our civilization possible. Without you, we are dying. The message was broadcast throughout the galaxy, repeated in every language and frequency that might reach human ears. It was followed by similar messages from every major alien government. But the humans maintained their silence. They were no longer interested in the aliens who had rejected them. They had found something better in the vast unexplored regions of space. The galaxy that had cast them out was collapsing, but they were building something new. The day of reckoning had arrived, and it was far worse than the aliens had ever imagined possible. 2 years had passed since the humans left council space, and the galaxy was dying. Supreme Arbiter Vex Thala stood in the council chamber, but it barely looked like the same place. Half the lights were broken and could not be fixed. The air smelled stale because the recycling systems were failing. Only 6 of the 12 member species could still afford to send representatives. The once proud Crystal, being looked older and dimmer than ever before. Her voice, which had once sounded like beautiful wind chimes, now seemed cracked and desperate. She was about to do something that had never been done in the history of the Galactic Council. We will broadcast a formal apology to humanity, she announced, and we will beg them to return. The few remaining alien representatives looked shocked. The Altarians had never begged anyone for anything. The proud Draxians considered apologies to be a sign of weakness. But their civilizations were collapsing, and they had no other choice. Far away in the unexplored regions of space, Dongmin stood in the command center of the flagship Resilience. Around him, the human leadership had gathered to listen to what would be the most important alien transmission they had ever received. The communication came through clearly, on all frequencies. Vexathala's voice filled the chamber as she spoke, words that would have been impossible to imagine 2 years earlier. People of Earth, we were wrong about everything. We thought you were a problem that needed to be removed from our galaxy. We did not understand that you were the heart that kept our civilization alive. Without you, we are dying. The alien leaders' voice continued, growing more desperate with each word. Our worlds are going dark. Our ships cannot travel safely between the stars. Our technology is failing and we cannot fix it. Our people are starving and we cannot feed them. We need you. Please come back to us. So Young, the fleet's communications specialist, was recording everything. She reported that similar messages were coming from every alien government in the galaxy. The Draxians were offering humans complete control over their military. The Nexari wanted to give humans their most sacred crystal cities. The Zephyrians were promising to make humans their ruling species. But Dongmin looked around at the faces of his fellow humans and saw something the aliens could not understand. These were not the same people who had been expelled from the council 2 years ago. They had changed in ways that the aliens could not imagine. Commander Taehyun stepped forward with a holographic display that showed the results of human exploration in the Outer Rim territories. The images were breathtaking. Star systems filled with resources that the council species had never dreamed of. Planets that were perfect for human colonization. Technologies that made council science look primitive. We have discovered energy sources that are 100 times more powerful than anything in council space, Taehyun reported. We have found materials that can build ships faster and stronger than anything we had before. We have developed terraforming techniques that can transform dead worlds in decades instead of centuries. Chief Explorer Hei-Wan added her discoveries to the presentation. The Outer Rim contains phenomena that could revolutionize our understanding of physics. Stable wormholes that make jump gates look slow. Planets with gravity fields that can be harvested as energy. Stars that produce matter we can use to build anything we want. The human leadership looked at data that showed their new civilization was already more advanced than anything in council space. In just 2 years, Working without the limitations and restrictions of alien oversight, humans had made technological leaps that would have taken centuries under the old system. Why did the Council species never find these things? Asked Min Ho, the youngest member of the Leadership Council. Because they were afraid, explained Heywan. These systems are near black holes, unstable stars, and gravitational anomalies. The aliens thought they were too dangerous to explore, but humans saw them as challenges to overcome. Dongmin smiled as he looked at the evidence of human achievement. They had not just survived their exile from galactic civilization, they had used their freedom to build something far better than anything the aliens had ever created. The alien messages continued to pour in. The Zephyrians were reporting that their entire agricultural system had collapsed. The Nexari said their crystal cities were going dark one by one. The Draxians admitted that their mighty military was falling apart without human maintenance. They want us to return and save their civilization, said Commander Hyunwoo. But the question is, should we? The human leadership discussed the situation for hours. They could go back to Council space and fix the problems that the aliens had created. They could restore the failing technology and rebuild the collapsing infrastructure. They could save the galactic civilization that had rejected them. But they could also continue building their own civilization in the Outer Rim territories. They could develop the amazing technologies they had discovered. They could terraform new worlds and build cities that surpassed anything in Council space. They could become something greater than they had ever been before. Yun-G, the chief scientist, presented her analysis of both options. If we go back, we will spend decades fixing their problems and rebuilding what they destroyed. We will be back where we started, working to maintain alien civilization instead of building our own. And if we stay here? Asked Dongmin. We continue to grow and develop. In 10 years, we will have technology that makes Council science look like primitive tools. In 50 years, we will have built a civilization that spans dozens of star systems. In 100 years, we will be so far ahead of them that they will seem like ancient history. The choice was becoming clear to everyone in the room. They could return to being useful servants in someone else's galaxy, or they could continue building their own destiny among the stars. Wan-Ho, the former head of human engineering, stood up and spoke for many of them. We spent 300 years trying to prove we belonged in their galaxy. We built their stations, mined their worlds, fixed their problems, and maintained their civilization. And how did they repay us? They threw us out like garbage. The room was quiet as everyone considered his words. The pain of rejection was still fresh in their memories. But there was something else now. The excitement of unlimited possibilities. They are begging us to come back and save them, Wan-Ho continued. But why should we save something that rejected us? Why should we go back to being second-class citizens in their failing civilization when we can build something better? Dongmin looked around the room at faces that had once represented humanity's hope for acceptance in galactic society. Now they represented something much more powerful, humanity's determination to create its own future. The question is not whether we can save their civilization, he said. The question is whether we want to. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not return to Council space. They would not answer the desperate pleas of the species that had cast them out. They would continue building their own civilization in the territories they had claimed. Min-Ho raised the final question that would define their future. So what do we do with their messages? How do we respond? Dongmin smiled with genuine happiness for the first time in years. We do exactly what they taught us to do when they expelled us from their council. We maintain complete silence. Let them figure out how to survive without us while we build something they never could have imagined. The alien messages continued to arrive every day, growing more desperate and more generous with each transmission, but the humans never replied. They were too busy building their new civilization to waste time on the old one. As the human fleet turned away from the dying Council space and headed deeper into the unexplored galaxy, they sent one final transmission, but it was not directed toward the aliens who had rejected them. It was broadcast to their own people throughout the human fleet. Today, we stop trying to fit into someone else's galaxy, the message said. Today, we start building our own. The day we left in silence is over. The day we truly begin has finally started. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued to collapse. Species that had ruled for thousands of years were learning what it meant to be helpless. Technology that had seemed permanent was breaking down. A civilization that had seemed eternal was dying. But ahead of the human fleet lay infinite possibilities. Star systems waiting to be explored, worlds waiting to be terraformed, technologies waiting to be discovered, a future that belonged entirely to humanity. The day humanity left in silence had ended long ago. The day humanity started building something greater than anyone had ever imagined was just beginning. And this time, they would never again depend on the approval of others to determine their worth or their destiny. The stars were calling, and humanity was finally free to answer.